The next section of the trip was something I was looking forward to, attesting 660 kilometres of rough dirt road stretching from Derby to Kununurra. The Gibb River Road takes one through the remote Kimberley region, known for its numerous Aboriginal art sites and spectacular scenery. I'd added some knobby tyres to my bike and broom, and was looking forward to seeing how my suspension modifications would hold up in such a gruelling environment. The landscape changed soon after leaving Broome, boab trees and termite mounds. I pulled into a roadhouse to feast on a truck stop feed of local marinated eye-fillet steak, still on the bone, washed down with a local beer affectionately known as bush chook. I'd come to enjoy the silence of the bush, and my first night out camping was like a meditation. I rode on to Derby, where I set up for lunch under the shade of a tree on the edge of town. I still had some wine and cheese from Broome, some runny camembert, and a rather warm Super Tuscan. I put on a bit of the sax squawk of Bowie's last album and settled in for a relaxing break from the dust and heat of the road. I was approached by 5 Aborigines who asked to join me. They were from the remote dry community of Columbaroo. They were in town for a funeral and were enjoying their freedom with a slab of warm bush chooks. They offered me one, which I politely accepted. I offered them some cheese and crackers, and for one of the women it was her first taste of camembert, and she rather enjoyed it. "That's how they do it in Melbourne," she whispered to her sister. "All fancy like, Camelbert and wine." I had a giggle at her mispronunciation. They're a good people, traditional Aborigines. They really look out for each other. Humble, polite, and a great sense of humour. But it did sadden me when I later rode past the thriving bottle shop at the pub to see a kidney dialysis unit directly across the road. The first day on the dirt, and my bike was sliding round a bit. The roads were pretty rough, and I found by letting the pressure down on my tyres, I gained traction at least 10 kilometres more per hour in top speed. I visited Windjana Gorge, which 360 million years ago was ocean reef. This was the period in time when fish started to grow legs and leave the water. You could see the skeletons of sea creatures on the rocks, and the pools were filled with freshwater crocodiles. I then rode on to Galvin Gorge, where I saw my first Windjana, a ghost-like Aboriginal creator spirit said to bring rain. They are painted without a mouth, as it is said if they had one and could speak, they would be too powerful. There are a heap of tourists at Galvin, and it kind of ruined the ambience. I suppose I've got used to being alone in nature and just enjoying that silence. I decided that from then on I would avoid any recommended gorges and blaze my own trail. I saw a dingo on the side of the road. He didn't seem too scared of me. I had a few approach my camp at night just to take a look. There are also some wild-looking cattle around. I wasn't sure if a bull would attack me when camping, so that night I set my bike up next to a tree in case I had to climb it. You could hear the bulls bellowing at each other at night, and the mob would graze so close to my tent I could hear them chewing. But I loved it out here. Where else could I be completely alone in nature, with no signs of humans, as far as the eye could see? The next morning I rode on to the Barnett River Gorge, where I walked the rough track to the head of the river. I wanted to have the place to myself, and I did, for the whole morning. I had a swim in the pristine water and warmed myself in the sun. I feel like in these beautiful natural places, your body becomes in tune with nature. It's hard to explain, but it's kind of like you get into sync with the natural rhythm of things. I wanted to visit the Aboriginal art site called King Edward River on Wanneroo. To get there I travelled some rough country and had to cross a few rivers. I had the whole place to myself, just amazing. An open air art gallery, rocky outcrops and caves, absolutely covered in art. More Windjanas, a burial site, and the mysterious Bradshaw or Gwyn art, said to be up to 25,000 years old. The long-limbed people depicted in the art kind of looked African to me. The Gwyn art is an older art movement than the Windjanas, which only date back about 4,000 years. It just blew me away. As I wandered around, I imagined the site at night, lit by fire sticks, thousands of years ago. The sound of ceremony, clapping sticks and didgeridoo. Such a special place. That night I felt this is where I end my film. This is the pinnacle. I've seen remnants of the rich cultural history of my country. I've learnt of the grounding and healing nature of being alone in the wild. I felt at peace with myself and the world around me. I couldn't expect for more. The next day I decided to ride back to civilization, onward to Kununurra. I felt very much in sync with my bike. Everything worked. All my research and preparation. I felt like Toby Price in the Dakar. I did 300 kilometres of rough dirt, corrugations, dust and river crossings. The bike performed like it was on rails. The tyres, the suspension, everything worked a treat. And I felt invincible. I went from being a guy who was actually afraid of taking a wheel off my bike to someone competent in doing repairs. I learned that being alone in nature wasn't something to be scared of, but instead something that offers us a unique perspective of our own place in the world. And most importantly, I've grown to love my country again, to appreciate its rich cultural heritage, to reconcile myself with its vicious colonial past, and to understand that to move on we must recognise our similarities in order to overcome our differences. My journey is over. I hope you enjoyed the ride. Get out there and see it for yourself.